Kia ora, boys and girls. I wanted to read you this morning a book called The Farmer and the Poor God. And it's retold by Ruth Wells and illustrated by Yoshi. It comes from Japan. Many years ago, high in the mountains of Japan, there lived a poor farmer and his family. It seemed to the farmer that the harder he worked, the poorer he got. This wasn't true, as he was a dreamer and didn't work very hard at all. It also seemed to him that the poorer he got, the more children he had. This wasn't true either. There were only 4 children. One night, the farmer whined to his wife, "We are so poor, we must have a poor God." Now, about that, the farmer was absolutely right. In the attic space of their hut, there lived a poor God. There's the poor God. As poor gods go, he was a kindly sort. He liked the farmer, his wife, and he liked to sit in the dusty, cobwebby attic, listening to the children play. But he was a poor God, and a poor God is something to be avoided. A poor God is bad luck. And everybody knows that once bad luck gets hold of you, you will never be truly rich. His wife said, "I think you're right. Maybe if we move, life will be better. We could go in the middle of the night while the poor God is asleep. He won't know that we are left, and we'll be free of him and his bad luck." The farmer hugged his wife and danced around the hut. Finally, he knew why he was poor, and it wasn't his fault. "That's a good idea. We'll leave early in the morning." There's the farmer and his wife. Think about that. They packed their few belongings in a knapsack and tried to sleep. The farmer began to imagine life they would have once they were free of the poor God. The farmer began to get so excited about his new life that he couldn't sleep. He got up quietly so as not to wake his wife and went outside. And there in the moonlight he saw a stranger wearing sandals. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" he demanded. "I am the poor God who lives in your attic. I heard your plans to go to another village, so I'm weaving sandals for the journey." The farmer stamped his feet. "Wife, wife," he said, "here is our poor God. He knows we're leaving. He's planning to follow us. We'll never get away from him and his bad luck." His wife tried to console him, but it was no use. The farmer moaned and groaned all night. Yeah, it's the poor God making sandals. In the morning, the poor God waited, still weaving sandals. He'd made 6 pairs for the journey because straw sandals wear out quickly. And even though there wasn't going to be a journey, the poor God continued to make his sandals. He thought it was a good thing to do, to take a small pile of straw and weave it into something practical. From time to time that day, the children stopped playing to watch the poor God's thin fingers work the straw. And while they watched him, they were quiet, and he made each child a pair of sandals. That whole day and night, the poor God sat beside the house weaving his sandals. The next morning there were 12 more pairs. He tied them in a bundle and hung them from the roof of the hut. And the next day he found some straw that was a deep red, and when he wove that with the yellow straw from the farmer's rice paddies, the sandals were beautiful. There's the sandals hanging up outside the hut. And so it went on for some time. The farmer's wife sulked. The children shouted and fought with one another, and the poor God made sandals. The poor God accumulated quite a store of sandals. They were sturdy sandals. The poor God found that he could dye straw a deep blue, and he created patterns of yellow, red, and blue as he wove. One day a man from the village came down the road and saw the poor god at work. "Oh man, those are beautiful sandals you're weaving." "Thank you," said the poor god. "I have so many, please have a pair, and take this pair home to your wife." The villager thanked the poor god and took the sandals. The next week, another villager passed the hut. "Oh man, I heard of your sandals from my neighbor. He said they were sturdy and also very beautiful." "Thank you," said the poor god. "Take these pairs home to your wife and children." The farmer's wife happened to hear the conversation, and she repeated it to her husband. He stopped sulking long enough to say to the poor god, "Don't give those sandals away. Say they cost a bag of rice." The poor god agreed that was a good idea, and the next day, when two villagers came by, each took a pair of sandals and left a bag of rice. Third day, a third villager brought a pair. Instead of a bag of rice, he left a chicken. The farmer watched all this from inside the hut and thought, "Maybe if I took those sandals to the village, I could sell many pairs." And the next morning, the wife bundled up the sandals, and the farmer slung the pack over his back. And when he returned that night, he was carrying 6 chickens, a new cookpot, and a piece of candy for each of the children. Not a single sandal was left. "Poor God, you must make more sandals for us," the farmer said. "I will," said the poor God, "but I need you to bring me more straw from your rice paddies." The farmer's wife did what the poor gods asked. Soon they were all busy harvesting straw, dyeing it different colors, helping the poor god make sandals, and carrying them into the village to sell. They were all so busy they hardly noticed how their lives were changing. There was plenty of food now. Nobody was hungry. The children played their games out in the fields while they worked with their parents. They ran around shouting and laughing. And nobody thought they were too loud at all. Farmer's wife, who'd worried so much, sang as she worked. Once she even laughed out loud. The farmer learned how to make sandals. They are out in the fields. The farmer learned how to make sandals. And wonder of the century, this man who'd been so lazy as a farmer was really an artist. He made beautiful sandals. But for the poor god, the changes were strange. Usually a poor god is scrawny because he's hungry and ragged, because he's poor, and nobody likes him because why? Because he's a poor god. But this poor god was getting a little chubby around the middle. His ragged clothes were mended and his dusty attic clean. And strangest of all, the family began to love him. Poor god knew it was time to move on and make room for a god of good fortune so the family could be truly rich. Shogatsu, the new year, is the most important holiday of the whole year in Japan. And this year, in the days leading up to Shogatsu, the family cleaned the little hut. They cooked a special meal of rice cakes and rice wine to welcome the new year. This year, the farmer was sure they'd be truly rich. It's the custom as midnight approaches for the priest in the village to ring a massive bell. He rings it slowly, 108 times. Wake up all the neighbors. As the bell tolls, echoing across the valley, each family opens their door to welcome the new year. But in the farmer's house, just as the bells began to ring, the poor god appeared, ready to say goodbye. The wife, who now sang all the time, wept. And the children, who really now fought with one another, clung to his legs. "Why are you leaving?" they wailed. "We love you." "I must leave. If I don't, you will never be truly rich. See, here is a rich god come to take my place." And sure enough, standing at the open door was the rich god with his fat, smiling face and jeweled kimono. He pulled at the poor god's arm. "Hurry," he ordered. "You must be gone before the new year's here. This is my family now, and I'm here to make them truly rich." The rich god pulled the poor god one way, and the children pulled the poor god the other. That's the poor god, and that's the rich god. Somebody threw a pot of water, and there was so much hollering and commotion that the farmer had to shout to be heard. "Stop!" cried the farmer, who was now an artist. Everybody stopped, and all you could hear were the bells and the farmer's voice, firm and strong. He said, "I thought I wanted to be truly rich, but there is singing in my house and laughter. I create beauty each day of my life. We are already truly rich." And with that little speech, the family pushed the rich god out and slammed the door just as the bells ended. They hugged their poor god and sat down to their meal to celebrate their good fortune. Over the years, the farmer's family made many pairs of sandals. Each pair was different, and each more beautiful than the one before it. Children grew up and married. They built houses close by. And on the eve of each new year, the farmer gathered his family about him and told the story of the sandals and the poor god who lived in the attic. "It's a good thing for that poor god," he would say. "Who knows what might have happened to him if it wasn't for us?" The poor god had always been very quiet, and after a while, the family hardly ever heard him. He'd also been very shy, and after a while, the family hardly ever saw him. It's not that he went anywhere else, it's just that after a while, he wasn't there. Like the song of a rare bird, for the briefest moment you hear it, and then it's gone. You listen hard and you never hear it again, but you wonder if it was ever there at all, or if it was something you just imagined. Interesting story, isn't it, boys and girls? It's interesting because it comes from another culture. It's interesting because it asks questions about what is true wealth, and that correlation between happiness and wealth, which isn't a direct correlation. And this catalyst, you know what a catalyst is? Someone who, or something that makes things happen. This poor god was a catalyst. Even though he was despised by the family, he was a catalyst in making their lives really different. And then when their lives were different, it was as if he receded in the background and was never there. What to think about. Have a great week. Blessings.